Yeah, it's another one. It's another one. I'm super excited to join you guys for another edition of Marcus Asks. Tonight, we're going to be talking to someone who I met on IG through our Flickshop pages. Her page is Champion for Justice. Her name is Debra. Debra is going to join us. We're going to be talking about juvenile justice and why folks are fighting for juvenile justice, what she does to fight for juvenile justice, all of that kind of sort of thing. It's a really important conversation. If you guys don't know, I'm the CEO and founder of Flickshop. I went to prison when I was a 15-year-old kid for carjacking a man with my best friend who was 16 at the time. So this conversation is personal to me because I enjoy hearing others' perspective around young people who are charged with the crime and then what to do after they've been charged. So super excited to join this conversation. I'm gonna look for her. I think Deborah's going to join us in just one quick second. What's up, you guys? I hope all of you guys that are joining this evening will jump in the comments, say what's up, wave, say what's happening. If you have a question, please ask it tonight. I definitely would love to be able to hear from you. If you have a comment or any thoughts about this conversation, I would love to be able to hear from you. So definitely, please jump into the comments. I'm super excited. It looks like I just seen Deborah joins us now. So I'm going to go ahead and let her in conversation and to get this one started. We're talking about young people going into the criminal justice system, y'all. So stay tuned. It's about to happen. There she is. What's
Hi.
going on? How are you?
Yeah, right here with you. So glad to be here.
I'm so pumped. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me this evening on another edition of Marcus X.
Absolutely. It's my honor. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I really look forward to this. And before we start, I just want to say that I want to thank all of the young people and their families that I've worked with over the years, because that is what has informed the work I do today. So I want to honor them.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Shout out to all of those folks. And I'm excited to hear why you're so passionate about this. One of the things that I'd like to do at Marcus Asks is I like to jump straight into the conversation. And instead of me like reading all of the dope things that about you that I could probably read, that you probably sent me and my team in the bio, I would love for you to take a few seconds to introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Well, my name's Deborah, and I live in and work in Oakland, California. And I've been working with young people and their families for over 20 years. And I started out as a school teacher, and then I made a switch and I became a juvenile probation officer. And I worked with the probation department for 10 years. Um, and about, 5 years in, I just started to see how broken the system was, and that I wasn't helping these kids. I was part of the problem. I was actually hurting them. And I just made a plan to get out. And so in 2011, I left the probation department. And I started doing work in the community. Ella Baker Center with Books Not Bars gave me a chance and to work with them. And I would go up and down the state of California to the youth prisons, organizing the families, working on policy on a national level. And then from there, just dove in whatever community work I could do to reduce youth incarceration, to save lives, to keep people out of the system, turned into restorative justice, violence prevention. I testify in court. I don't know, you name it.
Now, I love this. I love that story. I think it's so interesting, especially people who have worked on one side of the justice system and then come on the other side, whatever that other side is, and then try to figure out ways to be able to leverage what they've learned in their experiences to be able to transform the other side. And so I've always found that really, really interesting. And you said you worked at probation specifically for juvenile offenders.
Yes. Yeah, juvenile probation officer. And
And
yeah,
what ages are that for those?
well, interesting enough, before this convo, I was doing a little research. And one of the issues, I think, is what is the age for minimum prosecution? Because, we're having a national conversation. Flick Shop, you're national. You know what I mean? I'm based in California, but across the United States, different states have a minimum age for prosecution, right? And so in California, that's 12 years old. And so basically, I was working with kids from 12 to, sometimes older than 18, because they would like get out of California Youth Authority and come home, and then they'd still be on probation. Because, juvenile probation in California can go up to age 25. So basically, I was working with kids. Like when I started, they gave me a caseload of 150 kids in East Oakland.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
How do you? Here's the interesting question, right? One of the conversations I had with a friend recently about providing resources for people that are coming out of these cells, out of these facilities, essentially, especially specifically around like employment options, right? And I'm like, dang, like, aren't the probation officers supposed to be like the first ones to be able to introduce people to opportunities? And then what my friend was saying was that he was like, yo, Marcus, what's interesting is that what I've learned after talking to a bunch of probation officers is that they spend so much of their time just trying to even just manage their caseload, because they have so many caseloads. I mean, so many cases that it's challenging for them to take the time to go out and go foster real relationships in the community that actually lead to employment. And so I'm looking
Well,
at them like this, but isn't this the job of the probation officer? I don't know.
no,
I would love for you to
no.
weigh in on that conversation.
Yeah, great question. I think that is not the job of the probation officer. Community-based organizations work with youth so much better than probation. Probation is the police, pretty much.
Well, but
Okay?
shouldn't the probation be connecting me to the organization?
Okay, well, sometimes probation departments have partnerships with community-based organizations. And then, yeah, so basically, if they have partnerships and if they have programs, then they can like streamline, let's say, a referral for a youth to get plugged in. But it's hit or miss. And if you look at the like welfare and institution code, probation officers, in my opinion, should only be doing what's mandatory in the penal code, welfare and institutions, and that's investigations, intake, and placement. So when it comes to supervision, the community can do a better job at supervising youth. I just want to put that out there.
No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you that the community definitely, and the community resources are the thing, right? But the problem is that I remember from when I came home, like I never knew that those community organizations existed. It wasn't until I
Right.
launched Flick Shop and was in the game for several years before
Yeah.
I knew it. And then what ended up happening was, now I'm like, yo, so you mean to tell me that all of y'all have raised money? You guys go to conventions and conferences and try to figure out ways to be able to support people that look like me? I never even knew you existed. How do I help support you to help introduce you to people well before they come home? And we try to leverage our app to be able to do that. But I think it's so interesting when I come into, I'm like, yo, how else would you know about these organizations if it wasn't for somebody introducing it to you, right?
Yeah, but I think what that does is that puts the nexus on having a good probation officer. It's kind of like teachers, you know what I mean? You've
That's
got
true.
good teachers and you've got bad teachers. You've got teachers who really care and they really care about their kids and they do a great job. And like, so
Yeah.
that's kind of when I was a probation officer at the end, I was like, this kind of sums it up. Untie my hands so I can uncuff yours.
Wow.
I was very limited in what I could do with these kids. You know what I'm
Dang.
saying? And it goes on such a deeper level,
Yeah.
than some quick fix. Um, and I think there's always a conflict of interest with probation now that I've worked with the community, because probation, they're kind of like, they report to the court. So let's say a young person comes to you and they're honest about their struggles and they're honest about their smoking marijuana. Oh shit, now what? I gotta go tell somebody. I can't help you. I gotta report you. So basically, I think that the whole foundation of the relationship is flawed.
So what do you say? What do you say to the probation officers that are working in the probation offices now?
What? Can you
What do you
repeat
say
that?
to the probation? What do you say to the probation officers that are working in the probation offices now that are still managing some of those young people that are coming out of these cells?
Yeah, so I'll work with young people who are on probation, and I will kind of coach them and try to, help them understand like what the role of the probation officer is, what their kind of like what their rights are, and what can they expect. So, your probation officer, first of all, is not your friend. That's not your friend. Okay. So just understand the relationship, understand the role. This is a person with a badge who has the power to arrest you. Okay. And basically, it's kind of their duty to tell you what are your terms and conditions that you have to abide by. You know what I'm saying? And then basically, if you're supposed to seek employment, then ask your probation officer for help. Do you have, programs, or do you know of places where I can look for a job that could give me training, that could, hire somebody with a record who is on probation? Because that can be, a barrier in and of itself. And then when you're talking about kids, come on, kids are like, when they turn 16, that's the first time they can even work. A lot of these kids are in school, so like when we're talking about the younger kids, how realistic is it to be employed? And then like to what degree?
Yeah. So I mean, but let's talk specifically to those probation officers, right? For the probation officers that'll watch this later, what do we say to them? What should they be doing? What should they be looking out to go do when they go to work tomorrow?
Oh, I see some of my friends. Hi, you guys. Well, so who our audience is probation officers?
No, I'm just saying, just for 1 second, let's talk to the probation officers and let's talk
Uh-huh.
to them and say, hey, this is what we expect from you when you're going to work tomorrow morning.
Well, I would just say that you're a public servant. You are there to provide a service. And it's your duty, once a youth is on probation, I believe that it's our responsibility as a society to support that person, because they talk about rehabilitation, but what really is the rehabilitation? So just remember that you're providing a service. You are a public servant, and it's an honor to work with these kids. Anybody who is in that position, don't abuse your authority. Like I feel like there's just such a divide. It's like there's this disconnect. It's kind of like it's built into the system. It's us versus them. They're criminals, we're not. Okay, so it's a lot of times it's hard to have people, who can really understand, how do we get at the root of some of the behaviors that are ending up with people on probation. And another thing we need to talk about is racial disparities. Okay, so we're talking when we go in the juvenile hall, it's predominantly Black and Latino youth. When we go into any juvenile institution, prison, over incarceration, who's being over policed, it's marginalized and vulnerable communities. So it's really not the kids who are criminal, it's the kids who are being policed the most. So I just feel like what it takes to shift all this is investing in our communities, investing in youth, in families.
So tell me,
when I look, yeah.
so tell me, what does that mean to you when you say we need more investment inside of our community, investing in our youth? What does that really look like?
Oh, thanks for asking. Okay, well, one example is, well, for like it costs $225,000, about $250,000 a year to incarcerate a youth in juvenile hall. Okay, $250,000 per year. Or you can give a community-based program like one that I ran that was violence prevention. I think we ended up working in a year, I think we worked with about 50 kids, and our whole budget was $250,000 a year. Okay, and we serviced a lot of youth, and we did a better job at it. And we actually gave them money. It was an incentive program. I don't know if you've heard about this, because sometimes it's controversial. They're like, why should you be giving thugs money? You know what I mean? But no, what we do is we work with people. What are their goals? What do you need to accomplish? How do we keep you safe? And when people and young people meet those goals and they are engaging and they're staying out of violence, we incentivized them and we gave them checks. We gave them money, financial, like literacy. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, at least here in Oakland, California, are getting involved in activities because they don't have any other options. They don't got resources. They're not, it's a struggle. So, you know what I mean? When we invest in people, like, and that's what I mean, you know, they talk about a universal basic income. When people get home from like youth prison, the probation department gets the money. So like this one kid, you know, maybe the PO would give him some Uber cards and Lyft cards so he could get to the probation office, right? Maybe she'd give him a gift card at Walmart because he doesn't have any clothes or a bed, right? But how much money are they really getting per kid? And how much of that is going to the child that really needs it? They're probably getting like $70,000 per kid, and it's going for a probation officer's salary, not to help those young people who are coming out. Okay, because like I know this kid right now, man, he just got out, and he was a foster care kid. Okay, so when you're in foster care, you don't got family. They abused you. They neglected you. So now he got locked up and he came out. He's over 18 now. Where do you think he goes? To his family? No, he don't have no family. He stays with whoever he can.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's whenever I hear the other stories. I mean, when I first got locked up, and you know, I was 15 when I went in, and I was the youngest person on the rec yard once I got into the prison. When I got into the jail, when I was in the jail, like they had tried to figure out a way to create this juvenile unit on the jail, and then like once I got sentenced, they was like, all right, we ain't got time to be trying to figure out like you good, that like you already in adult jail. We're gonna put you in an adult unit, and that was that from that point forward. And I was always the youngest person on the rec yard until I got around 7, 8. I think it was like 18. When I was 18, I think they shipped somebody to one of the prisons where I was, where they were like 16, getting ready to turn 17. And that was beginning the wave of starting to see, you know, because then when I turned like 20, then it was like people that was 16, 17 coming in. I'm like, oh, yo, like now I'm like the older one out of the young people crew. And it was, you know, it's when I look back on that, I think about like what that meant for so many families. Like, I think about what it meant for my mom. I think about what it meant for so many communities. Like, I know what it meant for my basketball team. I know what it meant for some of my classmates, right? But there were so many other things and so many other people who this impacted. And I always find it fascinating that there are court systems around the country that felt very comfortable with incarcerating children this way. But I think it's another fascinating thing to know that they're still being intentional about keeping these youngins on probation and probably giving them long, because I know they said to me 10 years on intensive probation. And I'm like, yo, and then you're waiting for this little youngin to trip up, as most little youngins do, to go right back into this prison cell. And to hear you, I'm listening to you now, and I'm like, Dad, this is the same thing that's happening over there in Oakland as well, and probably in some of the other communities that the people that are watching this can probably attest to. They probably say it in their communities as well.
Yeah, like I remember when I was a probation officer that everybody would joke about job security, how they got so much job security. Another thing, I remember I would work in court. I was a court officer, and that really
You said it
taught
had
me.
job security?
Yeah, job security.
They would say that.
Oh, heck yeah. All the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I was a court officer for 3 years. So that gave me like a whole nother bird's eye view of departmental policy. But what I wanted to say is there was a lot of times in the courtroom when there'd be this kind of like, inside joke. They'd let a kid go on GPS, or EM, or release them. And it'd be like, oh, go let him hang himself. He'll be back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, I mean, I could go on and on. You know what I mean? I could go on and on.
Let's focus on some of the positive things then, right? I mean, because you must be saying some amazing things in the community. One of the things that we're always excited about is what we're building with the Flickshop School of Business, where we also want to help train other returning citizens in the tech and entrepreneurship spaces. Are you seeing other organizations where you are that are being thoughtful about how to help welcome young people back into the community so that they can grow and thrive when they return?
Yes. Here in California, there is a shift going on in the state, and I hope that the rest of the nation follows suit. So basically what we did here in California, this has been a struggle that's been going on for 20 years, 10, here we are today. We actually closed the Division of Juvenile Justice, which is formerly known as California Youth Authority, notorious, run by CDCR, California Departments of Corrections. So now they're shutting down every single youth facility. And what will happen is the care of the juveniles will be in the responsibility of the county from which they live in. There's like 58 counties in the state of California. So, there's a whole shift happening. So basically, one concern is that this is a money pull for probation. Now that they're shutting down the state level of care, the money is being distributed to the county probation departments, right? Well, of course, we need to a degree, but also what's happening is the community-based organizations are rising up to also meet the need. But there also needs to be capacity building, because as we see this shift, sometimes we vision and we imagine what we need. Like, let's say we need a community hub where kids and young people can come and get a mentor and get help enrolling in college, getting plugged into a job, maybe having a healing circle, having, opportunities to raise money that isn't the probation department, and housing, and let me mention that too. But so basically right now our community-based organizations are growing, and they're developing, and they're building, and they're meeting the need that is basically happening as we speak.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm loving seeing this new era of growth inside of this space. Hey, Deborah, thank you so much for coming and joining another edition of Marcus Asks. I'm always excited to be able to gain from others' wisdom inside of this space. I appreciate you challenging me on thinking about what the roles of probation and parole officers are, especially as they're dealing with these young people. I thank you for helping even explain to me how probation and parole officers are being thoughtful about their jobs and what they're supposed to be doing every day. I think it's really important to be able to make sure that we weave in different people inside of our community, inside of these conversations, especially when we start talking about justice reform, because me, as one of the ones who want to see so many of these jails and prisons get shut down, and people return back to their communities and their loved ones and ready to go and contribute, I think it's going to take a diverse group of thought leaders in order to be able to get there. I appreciate you. I'll give you the last words for this evening before we leave out. And I see we got some folks on here who are really excited about seeing you tonight. So please definitely shout them out as well.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and just for inviting me, Marcus. It's such an honor to have this conversation. And I guess a couple closing remarks would be, yeah, just remember there's a difference between probation and parole. Parole is for when people have done a prison sentence, and probation is when, you know, have done like county jail time, or, you know, you're a juvenile on probation. And then I think as a nation, what we need to do is we need to ban the transfer of youth to adult court. We need to ban the police custodial interrogations of juveniles, and we need to raise the age of minimum prosecution for youth. And I just am so excited to be alive at this time, to have made this shift, and to be part of the solution.
Yes, you are. Thank you so much, Deborah. We really, really appreciate you. If you guys haven't already, please go follow Champion for Justice. Thank you guys for joining us for another conversation of Marcus Asks. Can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Until then, have an incredible night. I love you guys so much. Please go send some